As a weight expert, one of the biggest struggles I see is the mental struggle that people have when they get off track with their weight or health goals. Not only are we dealing with guilt and disappointment, but also the fact that once we get off track, the tendency is to be off track for a while, or at least long enough to gain a good amount of weight back, if not all. So in today's Thin Thinking podcast, we are going to explore one of the most critical mental muscles, like how to work out for consistency with weight loss, and which is really, truly getting back on track the moment you get off. So come on in and learn this 5-step process. Did you know that our struggle with weight doesn't start with the food on your plate or get fixed in the gym? 80% of our weight struggle is mental. That's right. The key to unlocking long-term weight release and management begins in your mind. Hi there, I'm Rita Black. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, weight loss expert, best-selling author, and the creator of the Shift Weight Mastery process. And not only have I helped thousands of people over the past 20 years achieve long-term weight mastery, I am also a former weight struggler, carb addict, and binge eater. And after 2 decades of failed diets and fad weight loss programs, I lost 40 pounds with the help of hypnosis. Not only did I release all that weight, I have kept it off for 25 years. Enter the Thin Thinking podcast, where you too will learn how to remove the mental roadblocks that keep you struggling. I'll give you the thin thinking tools, skills, and insights to help you develop the mindset you need, not only to achieve your ideal weight, but to stay there long term and live your best life. Sound good? Let's get started. Hello and welcome. Come on in. Are you keeping your sanity in this month of May? May, I know I said last time, I think my April was kind of crazy, but here we are in May, and this is when I see other people getting crazy. So I get crazy in April. May for me is crazy too. But this is when I see my clients, my students all starting to go, pulling their hair out of their heads because lots of stuff is going on. Like kids are getting out of school and there's birthdays and graduations and weddings and and we're back being out in the world again to a certain degree. And the summer's coming up, and this can be a great time to focus on weight with lighter foods and longer days, but there are usually tons of interruptions to our focus, like weekends away and travel and visitors. And so it could make a healthy season into a season of chaos, feeling like it's impossible to keep on track. So this week, I'm going to share a coaching session with you from my monthly mastery community. And it's all about the steps that you can take to get back on track. I cover how to prevent getting off track in the first place, and also what to do if you find yourself getting off track and what to do afterwards too. So I hope you enjoyed this session. Like Lisa mentioned earlier, getting into a plateau and starting to feel discouraged. For a lot of people, they get discouraged and then they start to get off track. And we could look at that as self-sabotage, or we could look at it as this is a struggle point that now needs to be worked through and used for the inner coach. Why I don't like that word self-sabotage so much is it because it makes us seem like we're bad people. Like, oh, I'm going to sabotage myself. Rather than looking at what the challenge is in that moment. Like, this is a challenge and I can figure it out. And in the past, I haven't figured it out. Like, I haven't taken the time or put the energy into it. I've given up. Not in a bad way. It's just like, okay, whatever. We're human beings and we don't understand everything and we give up. And I'm not saying this to be easy on yourself, but I'm saying that self-sabotage word for me, I don't know. You guys put in chat, what do you think? If if you like it or not, I feel like it takes your power away from you, that word. And I really feel like more what we want to get super curious about as weight masters is our struggle points. And we all have them. And we all are perpetually working through them. And, we get better at them. And sometimes we solve them completely, or sometimes we're aware, oh, this is going to be a challenge. How am I going to overcome this challenge? Or, oh, I was challenged and I kind of succumbed, I got off track, but now I'm going to be working on getting back on track. So, how does self sabotage happen? I think there's so many ways that it could happen, but the way I see it playing out for most people is we have historical struggle points that come from various conditioning that we've had. I have this saying, the louder the critic, the louder the rebel. Meaning, some people I think that they don't have an inner critic. I have a lot of clients who say, I'm all rebel. I have no inner critic, or I'm all critic. I have no rebel. But I honestly feel like when we're acting out, it's because our inner critic, there's some sort of expectation that is not, and then our rebel is reacting against it. And so, yeah, like the self sabotage feels like a word that's like, I'm a self sabotager and I'm kind of like, I've got this condition versus, you know, I'm a weight master on a journey and there are going to be challenges and barriers along the way. And sometimes I'm going to get off track and I'm going to figure it out and get back on track. And I have the support in my life to do that. I have my commitment, I have my vision, and the great thing about the word self-sabotage is we all kind of understand what it means, but I encourage us to like really refocus and use a different vocabulary that allows us more power in the situation. So the louder critic, do you guys get what I mean? Like when we're really starting to pick on ourselves, then that's often when we start to go, oh, screw it. This is too hard, because we're being, instead of engaging ourselves and motivating ourselves and inspiring ourselves with our inner coach, like Lisa, what you were going through with your plateau. That really took a lot of inner coaching. Whereas in the past, your critic would have been like, this isn't, this isn't going to work out. You're eating too much, or you're not exercising, you're not doing this right. And then it's easy to go, screw it. This is just too hard. How many of you guys know, put a Y in chat, the word halt, for in weight management terms, the word halt. Put a Y if you know what I'm talking about, just so I know. No. Okay. So, halt is okay. Well, good. So I'm going to teach you this word halt. So halt is this word that means, it's an acronym for never get too hungry, too angry, too lonely, or too tired. Because that's generally, okay, Kurt. Oh, Kurt, and I wanted to say, awesome, I'm glad you're back in water aerobics. That's so great. So hungry, angry, lonely, tired are usually the times that kind of set us off for, what you would call self-sabotage. But like, how many of you guys have had that experience where you hit zero and it was a lot harder to stay on track or eat healthfully when you got so hungry, you just started grabbing for whatever was convenient? Yeah. So hungry, angry, I have that, like angry and resentful are like the most fattening emotions, I think. And I think, being able to know that, oh, I'm feeling, like I have that term, am I going to eat over this, when we're feeling a feeling like, let me work through this feeling, because feelings are going to make us, stress eat or resentment eat, like, I'm so mad at that person. I'm mad at this situation. Like it's not fair. Um, Loneliness, I think, is also something that a lot of us, especially we all know that from COVID, like COVID was so isolating. And tired. I mean, I definitely know when I'm more fatigued, it's way easier for me to reach for food for that quick energy fix, or it's a lot easier not to stay on track when you're tired, you're depleted and your resources. So that's another indicator, like those, we as weight masters have to really be mindful and start to tune in and not take these things for granted. Like, really, like I say, protect your zero, protect getting too hungry. When we get our emotions, we've got to get to that point of like, oh yeah, I'm feeling this emotion. Let me um, let me manage this emotion. Let me work my way through so I don't have to eat over it. And usually, how I manage a lot of times if I'm angry, I have to forgive somebody or I have to forgive the situation, like, and I'm doing it to protect myself, not the other person, and I have to take action. I have to say, well, if I'm going to forgive them, like, is there an action I need to take to ask, like, ask for myself? It's so funny. My husband and his friends who are staying with us this weekend, they 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 are such, I said, you guys should all have babushka little scarves that you wear over your head, because they are like a bunch of women who are like, they are so, they what's that word, gossip. They're the biggest gossips. I couldn't believe it. I was like, these big grown men, the biggest gossips in the world, and they were talking about their friend, and I was like, you guys, like, you should just ask him for what you need, because there was one friend that wasn't doing, and they're all like, he's this and he's like, I was like, you should just ask him for what you need. And they're like it was like the biggest revelation, like, oh yeah, maybe, like, these are grown men who went, I don't know, I was like, we have to look, and when we're feeling an emotion, we have to own it and say, okay, I'm feeling this emotion, how am I going to process, and how do I get what I need? So anyway, I know that this isn't what today's lesson is about, but hungry, angry, lonely, tired, those are things that will set us off track. And um, and then we also need to start to really tune into ourselves. And I mean, I can't stress enough how weight mastery is really being about 100% responsible for ourselves, and understanding, instead of being a victim of when we get off track, really owning it and really looking at how we're using that experience, that going off track experience. Like, let's say it's Friday night and we go out and we eat way more than we thought we would, or we stress eat at the end of the workday or whatever, is to start to really take ownership of that, instead of denying, like, oh, this is a problem. I've got this problem. I'm a victim of this problem. Rather than that, to start to say, well, let me own this and say, what am I doing here? Is this a reward thing? Is this escape? Because usually how we take ourselves off track is from, we want a reward, or we want to escape, or it's a social situation that we always perpetually get in trouble with, or we're very fatigued and then we make a choice that maybe isn't so in line. And because in the past when we've struggled, our brain has gotten used to the food is the answer, food is the escape, food is the reward, food is my social connector, food is the way I manage fatigue, right? We need to take ownership for that and go, I have this thing. My brain is trained to go to food for these things. Am I a horrible person because of that? No. But now that I know that, and now that I understand that, how can I start to give myself some alternative neural routes, routes, not roots, but routes. When I am feeling reward, what are some other rewards that I can give myself? Or what is the reward of going out on Friday night? It's not just the food, it's being with people and digging into that, versus eating, overeating. So looking at where your trouble spots are, your challenge spots are, and starting to see that there's probably, we gain weight with the same foods in the same times in the same places for the most part. So it's not going to be a big mystery for you what your challenges, and probably as you are releasing weight, you're seeing more, one, progress, so you are working through some of these struggle points and figuring it out. But the other ones that are more tenacious and stick, those are going to be the ones that for weight mastery, yeah, you're probably going to have to work through that. And that's what, your inner coach is for. That's what sitting down with yourself on Sunday and thinking those kinds of things through on a weekly basis is super helpful. It's also super helpful. I really love it when you guys bring challenges like this, like Lisa said. How do I know about South Sabotage? Like, let's discuss this stuff, because that's the way we start to break through it together as a group. So I hope that, so let's look at some stuff, like get out a pen and paper, and I want to ask you guys some questions about okay. So what is getting off track? So please put in chat, like for you, what does getting off track or going off track mean for you?
Rita, can you repeat that?
Yes. What does going off track mean for you? Meaning like um, overeating, Friday night, like where do you go off track? Like what has been, what does going off track mean for you? Like going off track for me, what does that mean? That means probably being social like 3 days in a row, and then overeating because I've gotten, my carb zombie is awake. Getting off track for 2 days. Okay. If you don't track, okay, good. Night grazing, old habit. Okay, good. Yeah. So we all have, or you can see, like those are all different things. Stop tracking calories, wondering too many, we can splurge, stop working out. Exactly. So um, starts out as momentary and then get back. Exactly. I mean, I have a Nancy, there's something going on with me I'm trying to avoid. Yeah. So you can see that we all have our own thing. Like for me, for instance, this week was probably for me going off track is not exercising as consistently as I usually do, and not really tracking food as closely, and maybe I haven't gone overboard, but I like woke up this morning and I was like, okay, I haven't exercised in the last 3 days. My husband's friends have been here. I mean, I have every excuse in the world, but I was like, get up, get on your Peloton, do your thing, and because I just had that little moment with myself, is like, this could go a little further, because my brain was like, oh, you don't have to exercise this morning. The guys are all around. It's like, da, 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 da. And I was like, oh, yeah, I heard that little voice. I was like, okay, take a breath, you know, yeah, it's time to get back on track. So, but yeah, going off track can be a momentary thing, where it's just like you said, you don't track for a day, and that's sort of like it's not a long-term thing, but it's momentary. It could be a few days where a weekend away where you're like, oh, I don't care, and then Monday morning we come back and it find a little harder to get back on track. Um, yeah, sometimes when we're things are going well and we're getting close to a milestone, that could definitely trigger that, yeah, like the reward eating, or maybe a little like, oh, I'm almost there, I don't have to work as hard. It might be a few weeks. Like, how many of you guys during the shift process have been off track for a couple of weeks and felt like you had to bring yourself back? I know, Nancy, I think you felt like there have been some times where you got off track, or like even in the winter time when we're struggling. Tally had a month of that. Yeah. And, you guys, here's the thing, we're going to get off track in our weight mastery journey. I think that is something that, we have a lot of shame around, like, oh, I'm off track and I should be ashamed. But you know, I, I think the more that we own it and the more that we take the shame away and really go, how do I get back? Like, I'm really proud of you, Tali. I mean, like, I know you were like observing things and being very present, and you challenged yourself and you got your inner coach together and you got back on track. And I think the value of getting off track and getting back on track is you start to trust yourself that you can get yourself back on track. You know, that is a muscle. Getting back on track is a muscle that the more you exercise it, the more experience you have, the more ownership you have of your weight mastery. Because you're going to continue to get off track throughout. It's not going to be perfect. It is never going to be perfect. We are human beings and we have wiring. As weight strugglers, we do have wiring that sometimes gets tripwired. And but now we have skills and we have our inner coach and we can start to manage it differently. So here's some questions for you guys. How I want you guys to start to get used to recognizing the signs. Like, how do you know when you are on track? Like, what tells you? Put it in chat, or you can write it down, or both, preferably. How do you know when you are on track? What are your key indicators that you are on track? Maybe for some of you, it's tracking your food. Maybe it's a certain amount of exercise per week. You know, like there should be probably, um, uh, okay, Andrea says it's her lose it. Um, she looks to that, and the scale, yeah. Sunday planning for the week. So, you know, when you're checking in, you're doing that. You know, and you probably, what I would suggest you guys is it would be helpful for you to have three things that you know, like when you are doing these things, you know you're on track, right? Like for me, it's a certain amount of exercise per week. You know, I try to get 5 in, you know, sometimes 6 or, you know, sometimes 7, but 5 is my like my baseline. And tracking, if it's not tracking and lose it, it's really being consistent with like knowing what am I Sunday planning. Like those are my like touchstones. I know I'm on track when, and I think why that will be helpful for you to have at least three is then you know when one falls out, oh, what's going on, you know, not that it's bad, but it's an indicator like your car, you know, your light flashes on when you need an oil change. Tracking food, drinking water, and visualizing. Awesome, Robin. Um, yeah, so having like three indicators for you, I think will help you know when then, oh, there's a pot, I'm in kind of like a little, not the danger zone, but you know how here in California we have the different colors of fire alert, like it's an extreme fire alert day, or there's, you know, it's a low fire alert day. You know, we have that like, oh, I'm kind of in this vulnerable place. How do I strengthen myself and how do I, you know, or if I'm in a vulnerable place and I know I'm going to be going out this weekend or going away, how do I, you know, re-strengthen my resolve and my vision so that I can get myself back on track? Almost bought a candy bar, which would have set off a binge, realized it and stopped myself. Yay, Barbara, good job. So now how do you know you are off track? Like, what tells you? But how do you know, like what external or internal signs do you know? Oh, shit, I'm off track. You know, like for me, it was like, oh, wow, I haven't exercised in 3 days. I didn't even like think about it. I was like, wow, crap, I haven't exercised in 3 days. And I went out last night to a party and I, you know, like I ate fine. I wasn't off track with my eating so much, but I know I consumed more calories. And I was like, well, if I'm consuming more calories, you know, where's my exercise? So how do you know you're off track? Put it in chat. Off track, too many calories for the day. Anyone else? So I think it's important also for you guys to start to get really tuned in to signs that you are going off track. Stop planning my food so I can eat what I want. I love that, Nancy. But it's so true, and in because we don't want to be a victim of this. We want to start to look to this, stop tracking, less exercise, no food. Like I am learning more and more about business. Like I've been, like running my practice for many years, but now that I'm doing more stuff online, I'm really learning about data, and and data for me has always been very important for weight management. And now that I'm doing more stuff online, I'm, you know, I'm looking to these indicators every week, every day, like how is my business doing, right? And when I'm not tuned into that, I can be so I will come back and be like, oh, something's off track, but I can always then pinpoint it and get to the root of what, oh, okay, I need to correct that. And I know a lot of you guys are in business, or a lot of you guys understand what I'm talking about. Like we have all these key indicators in our lives for when things are going well. Like if we have kids, we look at like what's going on with them, with school, with their mood, and we have these other things. But often we can get off track and not even know we're getting off track until it is then a problem, right? Um, so you hear about people like not avoiding going to the doctor until it's too late. It's like we want to start to use our Sunday planning. I think is such a great time to just tune into yourself and start to look at what's going well, what's being challenging, and really take that temperature of how's my weight management going. Am I bored? Am I frustrated? And start to get real about that, so that then you can start to tend to that before it becomes a bigger problem and you check out altogether, right? Grazing, not logging, bringing trigger foods home, not doing, yeah, like when we start to go, oh, I can handle bringing those foods home, like what Barbara was saying, almost bought the candy bar, but she talked herself out of it. And maybe that, you know, maybe you want to look at that a little deeper, Barbara, and go, oh, well, am I feeling bored with what I'm eating? Do I feel like I need a different type of reward or treat? Maybe I need something that has, I need to invite that in, something else in. Boredom is a really big indicator that you probably are about to go off track, bored with your food. So, when I start getting bored with my food, I know I get bored with my food because I start eating more of it. And so that's always an indicator for me to kind of bring new stuff in, to bring new recipes in, to find new rewards and treats. You knew it would taste good. Um, so I hope that's helpful. I think, we just kind of go on in our lives and we're kind of, living them, but having these sort of built in as like I'm being on the lookout for these things. And again, it doesn't take a lot of energy, but it gives you a framework to know, how things are going, how things are not, so that we can be more aware of, oh, I'm getting a little off track here. Let me bring myself back, rather than going all of a sudden, oh shit, I'm off track. I've been off track for a week. How do I get back on? It's a lot easier to manage it and make sure you keep yourself on track than it is to bring yourself back. Even though I do agree, like there's a value in coming back on track and working that muscle. I also think that just, having and again, I think the Sunday meeting with yourself, the daily check-ins when you're logging your food and thinking about things, it should be helpful. But I think knowing what for you are the best indicators will be helpful for you. Um, and how do you know you're slipping from on to off? That's like, yeah, like how do you know that you're slipping from on to off track? again, for me, I mean, I would think it's the food I'm consuming. Like if I'm eating more refined carbs, then that's a real quick, when I eat sugar and then I start to go, oh, I had some sugar and oh, I'll have a little more sugar today. That's immediately my indicator that, oh, your brain has slipped into that, oh, we could have more sugar and we could have more sugar mode. Like as soon as I'm like, I can eat sugar, I allow myself sugar, but when my brain goes into like, oh, I could have a little more sugar today, then I'm like, yeah, no, this is, we're slipping here, so what for you, tells you, oh, I'm slipping from on to off. I know grazing and not logging, bringing, did anybody have like any, like that moment, ah, I'm slipping from on to off. All right, so I'm gonna now move on to, getting back on track. And I've made this a sort of, I've made this sort of acronym that you guys should all be aware of. It's in my book. It's in the shift. But I want to work through this because in my mind, it just having an acronym helps sort of train your brain in in the steps. So if I find myself getting off track, like I did, these last few days, um, I I take a shift breath. And what I mean by taking a shift breath is I take a moment. Okay, wait a minute. I haven't exercised. I ate a little more than I should last night. Like I stop and I'm like, let me tune in here and let me, um, like if I was really off track, I would be like, I'm getting really off track. Let me take a moment. And when I say that, I mean I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to do this, this is, I'm giving myself a gift here. So I kind of, that breath is like, okay, whoa, let's tune in and let's figure this out. And then, you harness your inner coach. You don't want to harness your inner critic and your inner rebel. They're not going to help you here. They've probably already kind of chimed in and started to beat you up, or like my inner rebel would say, hey, you don't have to exercise this morning. You already have an exercise. To Monday, you'll get back on track. The guys are going to be, leaving. You can just have fun today. It's like, take a breath. Okay. Because, if I hadn't exercised this morning and like been blousy about my eating today, I don't know. That's one less day that I'm feeling good and present. And um, I don't know. I feel awesome that I got on my bike, and when I was like, oh, thank goodness, now I'm back. I feel so good. So, um, you're focusing on problem solving and not blaming yourself or denying, which I think we can get really good at as weight strugglers, right? We're like good at like, that's not going on, or it's not a problem, or I'm da, 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 da. Okay. Um, and then investigate. And again, we've been talking a lot about this, like get the data and the facts and take ownership. And I cannot tell you how much weight mastery is about taking ownership, 100% responsibility. I don't, a lot of people may like try to sabotage you. But you've got to, the more you take responsibility for your actions, your thoughts, your beliefs, and understand that you can work through these, the more power you have, and the less prone you are to react or be a victim of external circumstances. Look, they're going to happen, but the more you are managing yourself, the more easy it's going to be to manage your weight. So get the data, get the facts, and take ownership. How much did I? Okay, I ate 10 pieces of pizza last night. and I'm going to, look at that. Okay, I ate 10 pieces of pizza last night. I drank a bottle of wine, and I ate a piece of tiramisu. Let me get the facts. Let me add those calories up. And, that might be a hard thing to do, to confront that, but the moment you do, you will feel way better, right? How many of you guys put in chat have had to sit down and add up like a ton of calories, but it made you feel better once you did that because you just got clear? How many of you guys have done that? Like after a day of, yes, Kurt, okay, cool. Yeah, like after a night out or a long weekend, like just getting clear on what you did. I know Kurt isn't the only one who's done that. Put a Y in chat if you've, had to sit down and go, wow, I really did that. There were weeks where I would get off track, and some days, and not as bad as I thought. Usually it's not as bad as you think it is. But sometimes I remember weeks where I would have deficited calories and then got into Friday and Saturday, and man, like 4,000, 5,000 calories. So I was like, well, I'm not going to release weight this week, and I'm certainly might add some weight this week, but at least I know. It's so, it connects you. What that does is it connects you back to yourself. And once you see it's a number, it's a number. It's not you. You're there. You're not the problem. Um, it and there's some pride in taking ownership about that we go through, right? So get the data, get the facts, take that ownership of that. The moment you do, write down the calories. It's the trick for success. It keeps it real. Also track if I have debit or credit to use the next day's calories, right? So, and then once you have that, that's the time for the forgiveness, right? And that's the time to go, okay, I forgive myself, how human. um I'm gonna, it's not about letting it go, but it's just like acknowledging it and going, you know what, I forgive you, and reconnect with yourself and believe in yourself, because you have to forgive yourself to restore belief, right? And that is the most essential key, because the moment we do something that we see as bad or we see as not right, we lose trust in ourselves, and we lose that belief that we absolutely need to stay on track and to get back, right? We need to believe in ourselves 100%. And so, and what is going on while you're doing all these steps is there's another part of your brain that watches you saying, oh, Rita knows how to get back on track. Like, she's taking care of herself. Um, we can trust that Rita's going to do this. Like there's all these different aspects of you working together within this process to not only, reconnect you to yourself, but to start to trust that you know what you're doing and that you're going to continue to build this, right? Learn the lesson. Again, most of your struggle points are going to continue to be your struggle points until you work through them. And I'm not suggesting you work through them all um, at once, because you've probably discovered workarounds for some of them. But like Andrea and Lisa, both of their questions came from them acknowledging something like, oh, plateaus, I'm in a plateau, and that was very challenging for me. And I've had plateaus before, and those were, like those were what would take me back to weight struggle. So let me start to work through this in a different way. Andrea is at a place where she doesn't know all the answers yet. And she's at this place where she's asking questions, like, because this sounds like it has been a struggle point for her to get to her ideal weight, and that doesn't seem like it would be a struggle point, but for her, it is. And so acknowledging that and understanding, like, I need to, I don't have all the answers right now, but I'm working on this and I'm working through this, starts to give her power. So, as frustrating as it may be. So acceptance of what's going on, because I think we try to resist. The more we resist stuff, the more it persists, right? I know that corny old saying, but I mean, absolutely true. And owning it starts to dissipate the pain of it and allows us to have some clarity around it. And then taking action. I think often when we get off track, um, you know, when we're able to forgive ourselves, reconnect with ourselves, it really, really helps to sit down and create a new vision of from where you are to where you are going to go. Um, and re-exciting yourself. Like with Andrea, I was saying, okay, maybe what you need to do is have a new vision of what maintenance looks like so that it looks like a goal. Like if she's results oriented, maybe she needs to reconfigure maintenance not as this flat, boring, no results sort of thing, but that it's exciting, challenging, and what would the results look like? And she may have never thought of that before, but now her brain is going to go, okay, yeah, what would results for maintenance look like to me so that I can stay engaged, so that it can feel like I'm still on this journey of transformation, even though I'm at my ideal weight. How do I look for different indicators that are going to tell me, and I do think looking to others who have been maintaining their weight is also, a great help. So taking action, creating the new vision, the new goal, often like for instance, my pizza and wine scenario is like, okay, well, maybe I'm going to even gain a half a pound this week, but where am I going next week? How can I re-engage, and how can I now like maybe look to the weekend? How can I help myself on the weekends plan things through so I don't have that happen again to me? Well, that wraps up another week. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's podcast. Please subscribe in the show notes so you can always have a little thin thinking coming your way every week. And just take a deep breath and remember that the key, and probably the only key to unlocking the door of the weight struggle, is inside you. So keep listening and find it. Thanks for listening to the Thin Thinking Podcast. Did that episode go by way too fast for you? If so, and you want to dive deeper into the mindset of long-term weight release, head on over to www.shiftweightmastery.com. That's www.shiftweightmastery.com, where you'll find numerous tools and resources to help you unlock your mind for permanent weight release, tips, strategies, and more. And be sure to check the show notes to learn more about my book, From Fat to Thin Thinking, Unlock Your Mind for Permanent Weight Loss, and to learn how to subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss an episode.